if she had some deprogramming, she could be such a fantastic candidate.
What do you mean deprogramming?
Well, she just doesn't, she's never going to resonate with people outside of the bubble that she lives in the very, very far left.
What did they freak out about?
Gender, race, parenthood, schools, homelessness, crime, the border, education. Like we stopped being a scientific people.
While AOC hasn't said it directly, many insiders believe she's quietly preparing for a run at the Democratic nomination. One of them is Bill Maher, who warns the party could face a serious collapse in 2028 if it rallies behind her as its main candidate. And he's not just throwing out a guess here. Maher lays out his arguments in a way that hits hard and leaves little room for doubt. So buckle up, because what he says might entirely change how you see this upcoming political showdown. Before we start, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, because things will get intense fast.
I would love to have AOC on the show, and Mandami and Elizabeth Warren, but I can't subpoena the guests. And I can't fix that what the Democrats are scared of more than anything else, I mean, obviously besides gluten, is being primaried from the far left, even though most Democrats are not far left. They're mild-mannered and moderate, at least at my bathhouse.
Bill Maher doesn't hold back when it comes to AOC. He says she's been avoiding his show on purpose, even after being invited multiple times. In his view, it's not about timing, it's deliberate. He believes AOC stays away from places where the questions aren't planned, where she can't control the tone, and where there isn't a friendly crowd backing her up. And honestly, moments like that tend to stick around. Think back to when Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez spoke at that European conference and faced a question critics say caught her off guard. That clip didn't spread for no reason. Maher's point is simple. She doesn't want to go through something like that again, especially on a stage with millions watching, and the pressure turned all the way up.
If there is one practical thing that Democrats can do right now that would help them regain power, it's never speak to Trump in person. No, I'm kidding, that's stupid. No, it's this. Inspire your moderates to vote in the primaries. Get that base excited. You have the numbers. After Congressman Moulton made his comment about his daughter not getting run over, he added, "But as a Democrat, I'm supposed to be afraid to say that." Well, then change what you're supposed to be afraid of.
Some critics believe a big reason moderates have been stepping back from voting is the rising influence of figures like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Zohran Mamdani. For many of these voters, the party doesn't feel the same anymore. It feels like it's changing into something they barely recognize. The Democratic National Committee has long stood for a kind of liberalism built on broad rights, open debate, and a big tent that welcomes different views. But critics say a newer, more rigid ideological wing has emerged, often labeled as woke, with AOC considered one of its leading faces. They argue this shift has created a divide, driving away centrists who once felt comfortable in the party, but now feel pushed aside, ignored, and less motivated to show up at the polls.
If she had some deprogramming, she could be such a fantastic candidate.
What do you mean deprogramming?
Well, she just doesn't, she's never going to resonate with people outside of the bubble that she lives in the very, very far left.
Well,
And that, I mean, the New York Times, of all people, the people I've been like squabbling with for the last 7, 8, 10 years, whatever, when I was all about, Democrats have gone too far left, they just put out a huge editorial basically saying exactly what I've been saying.
what, that she's too far left?
Yes.
And that's really the core of the argument. Critics say Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez struggles to expand her appeal beyond a fairly narrow base. They argue she has a hard time energizing moderates who don't fully connect with her message, while also failing to win over conservatives who see her views as far outside their comfort zone. In their eyes, that creates a limit she can't break through. Bill Maher takes it a step further, warning that her style of politics could leave the party vulnerable on a national stage. He says her ideas resonate within progressive circles, but lose strength when put in front of a broader, more mixed audience. And in a general election, where success depends on building wide coalitions, that kind of gap isn't just a weakness, it could become a serious liability.
That the only way the Democrats will ever win again, not that the Republicans are probably going to give it back, is to be more moderate. But we don't have to argue about her. I mean, she has.
If people think she's too far left, then that shows another way this country's broken right now.
Well, I don't think it's necessarily broken in that way, but it just shows how the country is not there. That is not where the country is, and if you don't,
unfortunately, okay, that's the one thing, and I hate to admit this. This country is not as mature as it thinks it is.
Patton Oswalt seems to suggest that widespread disagreement with AOC's policies points to something deeper, that American society itself has gone off track. Critics, however, argue that this leap is excessive and even unreasonable. They argue it says more about the mindset inside that ideological bubble than about the country as a whole. From their perspective, it reflects an echo chamber where opposing views are truly considered, just dismissed. Bill Maher strongly pushes back on that idea. He argues that disagreement isn't a sign of moral decline, but proof of a healthy society, where people think independently and challenge ideas they don't agree with. In his view, rejecting certain policies doesn't mean the public is broken. It means people are still capable of making up their own minds.
We elected Obama, and clearly the country freaked out. We're still living in that freak out. We are not as progressed and evolved and intelligent as we think we are, because we keep freaking out about this stuff.
Well,
you know?
The left freak out too. The left freaked out about a lot of bullshit too.
What did they freak out about?
Gender, race, parenthood, schools, homelessness, crime, the border, education. Like we stopped being a scientific people. Like it's not scientific.
But the left certainly stayed scientific.
Bill Maher focuses on what he sees as the most controversial parts of AOC's agenda. Issues like gender debates, education standards, border policy, public safety, and homelessness. To him, these aren't just normal policy disagreements. He sees them as signs of a bigger shift in priorities, one that many voters, including longtime liberals, struggle to understand. Critics argue that positions linked to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez can feel disconnected from everyday realities, leaning more toward ideology than what they view as practical solutions. And they say that's where the real divide begins. Maher also points out that it's not only conservatives raising concerns. He says voices within the left are starting to question whether the movement has moved too far from its roots. And when even allies begin to doubt the direction, it suggests a deeper identity issue that could shape the party's future.
No, they didn't.
Why not?
Because they think gender bullshit that they went way too far with, that's not scientific.
But how did I'm not trying to. How did they go too far with like gender stuff? And I'm not trying to.
Instead of if I was teaching children, what I would teach them is there is a default setting for the human being, which is heterosexuality, but not. That doesn't mean every person is that, and we should completely respect everyone who isn't that. But we understand that that's called a minority, and what makes us a great country is that we respect minorities. We don't think they're lesser just because they're lesser in numbers.
Respecting minority groups and treating everyone equally, regardless of their background, is a basic principle of any fair and healthy society. That part isn't up for debate. It's the foundation. But critics say respect shouldn't be confused with automatic agreement. Supporting equal rights doesn't mean giving up independent thinking or accepting every idea without question. In a free society, people are expected to weigh arguments, look at the evidence, and form their opinions. The concern, as some see it, comes when disagreement is labeled as hostility instead of being seen as part of open discussion. That's when tension starts to grow. It's possible to stand for dignity and equality while still asking tough questions and challenging different viewpoints. In fact, that balance is what keeps public conversation alive. The freedom to think independently, question narratives, and have honest debates isn't a threat to progress. It's what keeps progress steady and real.
That's not what we started to teach, which was that every baby is, I don't know, let's not even put it on the birth certificate. That's what they wanted.
Were we teaching that?
Yes, we were.
When were we teaching that?
Teaching it. It was a law here in California. See,
to teach what?
Don't put sex on the birth certificate. We'll see. Now, we've passed that period now.
I'm sorry, I don't remember that. I mean,
I know, because it doesn't get in the blue sky bubble.
wait a minute, I'm not just a blue sky.
I really think that's a lot of it, is that some of this stuff doesn't get in to everybody's media.
It's notable to see Patton Oswalt appear surprised by the intensity of the gender debates that have shaped national conversations over the past 5 years. For many observers, these discussions have been hard to miss, influencing everything from policy arguments to major cultural flashpoints. His reaction to some extreme views, which can feel confusing or disconnected from everyday life, is even more notable. And that connects back to the broader point critics are making. Certain ideas, even within left-leaning circles, can surprise people with their extreme push. It's no longer only outside voices raising concerns. At times, individuals within the same ideological space also question the direction, tone, and practicality of what the far left label advances.
I'm of a mind, because I remember the African-American community was always saying there's brutality from the cops. Everyone said, oh, that's ridiculous. Stop it. This is all myth. And then cops started wearing body cameras, and lo and behold, there's all this footage of violence towards black people.
There was also a lot of footage of violence that they did on white people, but that didn't make it into videos. You see, nobody cared about that. Not that it excuses the other.
I'm just saying, whenever a minority expresses fear and trepidation and like, hey, please help us, this is going on, I tend now to believe them. I tend now to believe the minority.
I always believe them.
Whenever they say, hey, this is going on and this is really terrifying.
That's not quite the point critics are making. They argue that some claims in these debates can feel overstated or not always grounded in broadly accepted facts. A commonly cited example is the question of biological males competing in women's sports based solely on gender identity. Opponents say this can raise fairness concerns in certain cases, particularly in competitive settings where physical differences may influence results. They also question the idea that limiting such participation automatically leads to serious harm, arguing that the impact is sometimes exaggerated without enough nuance. From this perspective, the goal isn't exclusion but balance, finding solutions that respect identity while preserving fair competition. One idea often discussed is the creation of separate categories for transgender athletes, allowing participation without changing existing divisions. Supporters see it as a possible middle ground that acknowledges everyone while still addressing fairness concerns in sport.
Now, if you're saying the left went too far with gender, maybe that was a function of, okay, these people are scared, they're being targeted, and we're watching them be targeted right now. We're watching transgender people be targeted in a very aggressive way. So
we are? Where?
Oh my God.
Where are they being targeted? I mean, like everybody is being targeted to a degree. I feel like...
But not scapegoated the way the transgender people are.
Scapegoated for what? Who's scapegoating them?
Every school, every is a transgender person.
Not every... The ones that are...
But that's how they frame it, though.
Critics say this is where parts of the left risk losing credibility by overstating the scale of real issues. No one is denying that minority groups face challenges or experiences of marginalization. Those concerns are real and deserve attention. But the pushback comes when the narrative turns every space, interaction, or moment into a universally hostile environment. They argue that sweeping generalizations like this can weaken legitimate concerns and blur the line between real problems and exaggeration. It can also push away people who might otherwise be open to listening and supporting meaningful change. The goal, they say, isn't to dismiss minority struggles, but to talk about them with clarity and perspective. You can support fairness, equality, and reform without framing every issue as a crisis. In fact, a more measured, fact-based approach often makes the argument stronger, more credible, and harder to ignore. Ultimately, the debate isn't about denying minority struggles or progressive goals. It's about balance. Extreme narratives and exaggeration can damage credibility, alienate potential allies, and deepen polarization. Respect, fairness, and independent thinking can all coexist, ensuring real issues are addressed without turning every concern into a dramatized spectacle. And that wraps up today's video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.